People were vanishing in the village and no one knew why. In the heart of Umuiro, a village surrounded by thick forest and whispering rivers, there was a woman named Nnenna. She was loved by all. She helped the sick, mended torn clothes for the poor, and shared her food with those who had none. When a child went missing in the marketplace, it was Nnenna who found them. When a farmer's crop failed, it was Nnenna who shared from her own harvest. Her smile was warm, her hands always open to help. The villagers called her a blessing, but what they did not know was that she was a curse. Hidden in the depths of her home, beneath the woven mats and clay pots, was a doll. A small, lifeless thing, but filled with something dark. Whenever someone in the village fell ill and died mysteriously, no one suspected Nnenna. When a strong young man collapsed suddenly, unable to breathe, no one thought to ask her any questions. But in the dead of night, behind her locked doors, Nnenna would sit in the glow of an oil lamp, whispering to the doll. And with every life lost, she became stronger. The elders often spoke of witchcraft and unseen forces, but they believed such evils came from the deep forest, not from a woman who had lived among them for years. And so, Nnenna thrived, until one day, a little girl named Adaise saw something she was not meant to see. It was a market day, and the village was alive with noise and laughter. Women sold yams and spices. Men bargained over fresh meats, and children ran between stalls, playing their little games. But Adaise, just 10 years old, was not playing. She had been sent to fetch some palm oil, but her small hands had dropped a coin. As she bent to pick it up, she saw it. Nnenna standing behind her stall, her hands gripping the doll. The doll's tiny clay eyes were wide open. And the moment Nnenna whispered into his ear, a loud scream filled the market. Adaise turned sharply, a small heart pounding, and saw a man collapse to the ground, his body shaking violently. Gasps filled the air. People rushed to help, but the man was already gone. Adaise froze. She looked back at Nnenna, who was now watching her, smiling. But Adaise was no fool. She had heard the old stories, the ones about witches who stole life, about dolls that carried the spirits of the dead. And now she knew the truth. She ran. But as she did, she heard Nnenna whisper her name. Adaise. Adaise did not stop running. She ran past the market, past the huts, past the elders gathered under the great baobab tree. She ran home, where her grandmother waited, where the only person in the village who might believe her lived. But she did not know that by the time she reached her home, it was already too late. Adaise burst through the doorway of her grandmother's hut, her breath ragged, her heart pounding like a drum. Her grandmother, Mama Ife, was grinding herbs in a wooden mortar when she looked up. Her sharp eyes narrowed as she saw Adaise's trembling hands and widened eyes. "What is it, child?" Mama Ife asked, setting the mortar aside. Adaise opened her mouth, but the words would not come out. Her voice felt trapped inside her throat. Mama Ife stood slowly, watching her closely. "Who did this to you?" Adaise shook her head violently. She grabbed a piece of charcoal from the cooking fire and began scribbling on the clay floor. One word, Nnenna. Mama Ife's face hardened. She hurried to the doorway, peering outside. The market was still in chaos. The man who had collapsed was dead. And standing near the crowd, watching with a calm, unreadable expression, was Nnenna. She turned her head slightly. Their eyes met, and Mama Ife knew. She turned back to Adaise, her voice urgent. "Did she see you?" Adaise nodded. Mama Ife closed her eyes briefly, exhaling slowly. "Then we have little time." She reached into a clay pot and pulled out a small bundle wrapped in red cloth. Listen carefully, child, she said. What you saw today is real. Nnenna is not what she seems. She unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a dried roots and a tiny carved figurine of a snake. She draws power from something unnatural, a spirit trapped in that doll. But power like that must be fed. Mama Ife placed the figurine in Adaize's hands. She will come for you, child, because you know the truth. Adaize trembled as she clutched the figurine. What do we do? She whispered. But the air felt heavy, like a weight pressing on their chest. The small burning herbs filled the hut, though no fire had been lit. And then, a faint knock at the door. My dear Mama Ife, Nnenna's voice was warm, almost amused. You have not visited me in some time. Have I done something to offend you? Mama Ife did not move. She only held Adaize closer. Another knock. Adaize, Nnenna's voice purred. Come, my child, why do you hide from me? Adaize's small hands gripped the figurine tighter. Something cold slithered down her spine, and then the door creaked open on its own. The door creaked open, but no one stood there. The village outside was still buzzing with whispers about the man who had died in the market, but the air inside the hut felt strong. Thick, cold, unnatural. Mama Ife moved first, stepping in front of Adaize. She reached for the bundle of herbs tied at her waist and crushed them between her fingers. A bitter scent filled the air. Nnenna, Mama Ife said sharply, her voice steady. You have no business here. A soft chuckle drifted through the door. And then Nnenna stepped inside. She was smiling. Her wrapper was a deep shade of red, her hair woven into perfect braids, her beauty as effortless as ever. Adaize, she said sweetly. You ran away so fast earlier, I was worried. Adaize clutched the carved figurine in her hands, her heart pounding. Mama Ife did not move. Leave. Nnenna tilted her head, her golden earrings catching the light. Is that any way to speak to a friend? You are no friend of mine, Mama Ife said coldly. For the first time, Nnenna's smile faltered, and then she sighed. Such a shame, she murmured. Then slowly she lifted a hand. From the folds of her wrapper, she pulled out the doll. Adaize gasped. It was small, no larger than a newborn baby. His face was smooth clay, its hollow eyes black as night. The moment Nnenna touched it, the air in the hut shifted, like 1,000 unseen hands pressing against their chest. Mama Ife did not flinch, but Adaize, she could not breathe. The doll's tiny fingers twitched. Nnenna's smile returned. Such a stubborn old woman, she mused, her voice like silk sliding over a blade. Always meddling in things that do not concern you. She lifted the doll higher, whispered into its ear, and Mama Ife gasped. Adaize screamed as her grandmother stumbled backward. Her hands clutched her throat, her body shaking violently. Nnenna simply watched. Her eyes glowed softly in the dim light. Everything has a price, she murmured. Power, life, strength. Mama Ife collapsed. Her breath came in short, painful bursts. Her lips turned grey. Adaize dropped the figurine. No, Mama Ife. She fell to her knees, shaking her grandmother, but Mama Ife's body was growing cold. Nnenna sighed again. She was old, she said. It was her time. Adaize's blood boiled. She turned, her small hands curling into fists. You killed her! She screamed. Nnenna merely raised an eyebrow. Did I? She knelt down, reaching out, as if to stroke Adaize's tear-streaked face, but Adaize slapped her hand away. Nnenna stilled. For the first time, her smile disappeared completely. She straightened slowly, her grip on the door tightening. Adaize's breath came fast, her chest rising and falling as fury filled her small body. And then, Nnenna whispered something new into the doll's ear, and Adaize's vision went black. Are you enjoying the story so far? Please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more beautiful stories like this. As always, enjoy the story. When Adaize opened her eyes again, she was no longer in the hut. The world was strange, twisted like she was floating between realms. She felt weightless, yet heavy at the same time. The air was thick with a scent of death and decay, yet her body was cold. But what terrified her most was the silence. Her grandmother's voice, the heartbeat of her world, was gone. She looked around, desperate for some sign of life, but the place was empty. Empty and yet full of something suffocating. As she tried to move, Adaize realized she couldn't. Her body wouldn't respond. She was trapped, bound by an unseen force. Her thoughts locked away in a prison of darkness, and then she saw it. In the corner of the space, a shadow moved. Adaize couldn't make out the figure at first, but as it drew closer, she recognized the familiar shape, the doll. It was there floating in mid-air, its tiny clay face staring directly at her, and attached to it was the figure of Nnenna. Her hands were outstretched, her smile gone, replaced by something darker, something hungry. Do you understand now, Adaize? Nnenna's voice echoed, distant but clear. Do you see the power that I hold? Adaize's heart raced as she realized Nnenna trapped her in a world created by the doll. Her body felt as though it was still in Mama Ife's hut, her mind locked away in this strange, twisted space. Nnenna smiled coldly. You should have never crossed me, child. Adaize fought against the force binding her, struggling to speak, to move, to do anything. But Nnenna only laughed. The sound was high and hollow, like the wind screaming through an empty house. Power isn't something you can see or even touch, Adaize, she said. It's something you must become. And then, with a flick of her wrist, Adaize felt it. Her body began to change. The darkness around her thickened, sinking into her bones, into her very soul. She felt herself unraveling, the life she knew, the girl she had been, slipping away. She cried out, but Nnenna only watched her with cold amusement. You think your grandmother could stop me? She said softly, almost pitifully. Mama Ife was strong, but even the strongest fall before the power of the doll. I made it, I created it, and now it's mine. Adaize's vision blurred. Her limbs felt heavier, like they were sinking into the very ground beneath her. Her heart pounded, but she refused to give in. With all her strength, she grabbed the figurine of the snake from her pocket, squeezing it so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Something stirred within her, like a distant voice calling to her from beyond the darkness. Nnenna didn't notice. She was too focused on Adaize's weakening form. But the figurine glowed, a deep pulse, a surge of power. Adaize's body jerked, as if waking from a deep sleep. She felt the warmth of the figurine spread through her veins, filling her with strength she didn't know she had. The dark space around her shuddered. Nnenna's eyes narrowed. What is this? Adaize smiled, her lips trembling but strong. You have forgotten, Nnenna, she said. You think you control me, but I have something you don't. Nnenna reached for the door, her hands twitching, but Adaize pulled on the power coursing through her. The world around them twisted, shaking violently. The dark voice split. The forces holding Adaize down weakened, and suddenly Adaize was free. The world around her cracked like a shattered mirror. She was back in the hut, her body now hers again, but Nnenna was still standing before her, clutching the door, her face twisted in confusion. You think you can stop me? Nnenna hissed, her hands tightening around the door. Adaise stepped forward, her eyes blazing.
I don't need to stop you. I just need to destroy your curse.
And in her hands, the figurine of the snake began to burn. The figurine in Adaise's hands burned with an unnatural fire. It glowed, casting airy shadows across the hut. Nnenna's eyes widened in shock and rage.
What have you done?
She hissed. Adaise didn't hesitate. She felt something inside her shift, something ancient and powerful waking within her blood. She lifted the glowing figurine higher and spoke words she did not understand. Words that were not hers but felt as if they had always lived inside her. Nnenna screamed. The doll in her hands twitched violently, its hollow black eyes flickering with something desperate. She clutched it to her chest, her face twisting in pain.
No, you cannot.
But it was already happening. The very magic that had made her strong was turning against her. The walls of the hut trembled, the ground beneath them split open, and then the door let out a sound, a terrible, high-pitched wail like the cries of all the souls it had stolen over the years. Nnenna fell to her knees, her hands clawing at the door trying to stop the inevitable, but there was no stopping it. The cursed doll burst into flames. The scream it released shook the entire village. People came rushing out of their huts, staring in horror as the air itself seemed to catch fire. Dark smoke twisted up in the sky, forming the shape of something monstrous, something that had been trapped for too long. Nnenna's body convulsed. She let out a final, ragged breath and collapsed. The flames swallowed her whole, and then silence. The moment Nnenna's body crumbled into ash, the heavy weights that settled over the village for years suddenly lifted. The air felt lighter, the ground steadied, the whispers of unseen spirits vanished. The curse was broken. The villagers gathered around the remains of the hut, their faces filled with a mix of fear and relief. Mama Ife stared, her chest rose in a shaky breath, her eyes fluttering open. Adaise sobbed with relief, clutching her grandmother's hand. You did it, child, Mama Ife whispered. Her voice was weak but full of pride. Adaise helped her sit up, the warmth of the figurine still lingering in her fingers. The people of Umuiro whispered among themselves.
She's gone. Nnenna was a witch. She stole our lives, our families.
Some wept, others stared in shock, but all of them knew they had been blind for too long, and the one they had called their blessing had been their curse all along. That night, the village held a great fire, burning away the last remnants of Nnenna's magic. Adaise sat beside Mama Ife, staring into the flames, her heart heavy but strong. She was only a child, but she had faced the darkest of evils and survived. As the fire crackled, Mama Ife turned to her, her wise eyes filled with something Adaise couldn't quite name. The world will always have darkness, she said softly, but it will always have warriors too. Adaise nodded. She was no longer just a girl, she was something more. And as the flames danced against the night sky, she knew the village would never forget her name. The end. We hope you enjoyed the story you just watched. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video as it helps us create more videos like this for you to enjoy. Thank you.